You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm joined by a glum-looking Matt Kendrick. Matt, are you okay?
Sorry, that was just my my resting face. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thank you for asking.
Good. We're going to get the elephant out of the room straight away with the fact that I wasn't at the game yesterday because I've got COVID.
I thought you were going to kick me out of the thing then. When you were going to get the elephant out of the room straight away, I thought you were going to kick me off the stream.
We made a joke about the elephant in the room last week, didn't we, with John Moss? So we're just recycling content at this point, at the end of the season. I couldn't go yesterday, which I gutted about, really, not in terms of the game so much, but the pre-match fanfare for the Legends of 1982, which we'll get onto in a sec. Hopefully I can get my way through this in the next half an hour without coughing and sniffing everywhere. First of all, actually, let's just talk about that quickly. I really feel like I've missed out. I feel really left out of not going to Villa, which is quite a strange feeling. Like, I've come on to do a podcast today to talk about a game I wasn't at. I put my shirt on in some kind of hopes to feel included in part of the club. I feel a lot really weird about it. It's strange. And the people that are watching this, particularly, people that consume podcasts, maybe don't get to games as much, that can relate to it more so than people that go every single week. But I really feel like I've been missing out not going to the game. It's such a weird feeling.
I've got you a flag. What more do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, thank you. But it does feel weird. Have you ever felt anything similar? When you were a reporter and you went to every single game, you must have missed some games to family commitments and stuff. Am I the only one that feels this out of us two?
I'll tell you what was the big one. I don't know what Villa fans will think of me like this for saying this, but I've got a week away booked in, or a fortnight away booked in New Zealand for my sister-in-law's wedding, and it would have clashed if Villa would have beat Bradford in the semi-final. It would have clashed. And
this is going.
I don't know, it was a row, but I said to my wife, if Villa are at Wembley, I've got to go to that match regardless. I'll fly out separately. I'll have to take the hit financially and all that kind of thing. And obviously, listen, we probably knew it after the first leg because Villa was so poor away at Bradford. But after the second leg, when we were equally crap, I was gutted that we didn't get to Wembley, but it might have just saved my marriage. So I could probably cope with, I know these Villa fans who pre-COVID hadn't missed a match for 40 years or 50 years or whatever. Yeah. I could probably cope with having now sat through yesterday's match. I could cope with having missed the match if I wasn't there. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to be ill for a game, yes, you did miss the great tribute that was paid to the legends, but in terms of the actual on pitch performance, I don't think you missed a fat lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I was writing up the newsletter to go out this morning, as we do every Monday morning. I was writing this kind of thought process that I've got. Yeah, it doesn't sound like I missed a great deal from the game. We'll start where we always do with team news then. As I said, I wasn't there. I've watched, I don't know if I can say I watched it on a dodgy stream, but I did. Wasn't great. I've seen a few highlights. I feel a little bit weird about it. So we'll start with team news as we always do, unchanged. Was that the right decision, do you think?
I don't know. We didn't win the match, did we?
So no, then.
We didn't really take the game to Palace. Weren't able to match the intensity that we showed for large periods against Liverpool. So you would probably say no. The obvious one is Buendia, again, who has made some, I know he started the game the other week and did exceptionally well. But other than that, he made some decent, lively cameos, which he did again. It was crying out for Jacob Ramsey and Buendia. Those were the changes that were made eventually. We've said previously, didn't we, against Liverpool, that we like seeing what Douglas Luiz can do in a more advanced role. Now, to me, it found him. He was the one who's having to provide the kind of wide threat in the right channel, and just wasn't doing much with it, really. You could almost see Matty Cash thinking, I'm looking for somebody to play the ball to. He could almost do with playing the ball to himself on the overlap, Matty Cash, because he didn't really have that attacking outlet down the right hand side. So I'm not just digging out Douglas Luiz. I think there's a few players who just weren't quite at it. Palace did a decent job on us, I think, in terms of they sat in and made it difficult for Villa to try and get around or get behind them. But yeah, I suppose it's the popular narrative at the moment. You've got to ask the question: why Buendia is not getting those starts when he's clearly doing pretty much everything he can off the bench to convince the manager.
Can you just mute that WhatsApp notification before we move on, please?
Well, I don't actually understand how I've had a WhatsApp notification because I've got WhatsApp web on.
Yeah,
but my phone's actually off.
Oh, no, that is weird. It's not me, is it?
So that's spooky. It might be a different platform that I've had a notification from. I'll just check.
Okay,
there's another one
then. Yeah,
that was Slack.
Okay, nice.
Not only was it Slack of me to let it through, that was from the platform Slack. Yeah, I'll turn my emails off as well. If I'm my boss is trying to get hold of me, and I'm
I can wait. Just tell
him where I am.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that I'll edit this out then, but we're live on YouTube as well, so enjoy that. Back to Buendia then. I kind of expected it would be Coutinho, just because of the confirmed to be a full signing at the player awards and all that kind of thing. I thought not that would kind of give him another lease of life, but maybe that would kind of make him want to put on a show. I'm here now, here to stay. I think his partner, his girlfriend, his wife, whatever she is, put an Instagram picture saying our new home of them sat on the Villa Park pitch. I thought that might kind of revitalise him a little bit and he'd kind of play out of his skin, but I kind of expected that. And then you just think every time, how is Buendia going to get into this side? Because when he comes on, he looks like the star of the show, but playing a player that costs 38 million, 33 million for 20-minute spells here and there just doesn't cut it, does it?
Again, nice problems to have, isn't it? It's we've said this we've said this so many times. Buendia, Coutinho. If you can find a way of getting them both in the team, brilliant. If you can't, then somebody is going to be the fall guy. At the moment, that's Emi Buendia who's been the fall guy. I don't think Coutinho was terrible yesterday. I thought you could see the cogs going in his head. You could see a couple of times where he's seen passes that us in the stands haven't seen, and sadly some of his teammates haven't seen. But he's always thinking, he's always probing. It's not always going to work. Hopefully, once Gerrard has a pre-season with Coutinho and Coutinho has a pre-season with that squad, then they will be on the wavelength more and more. I mean, we said earlier in the season when Coutinho first arrived on loan, him and Jacob Ramsey seem to have this sixth sense of knowing what runs to make and where each other are. I think there's still a while before Ollie Watkins gets that with Coutinho as well, possibly Ings as well. So I can understand Gerrard playing, superstar footballer, new signing, exciting talent Coutinho, and I just think there will come a time if Buendia is impressing more in his cameos than Coutinho is in his starting. His starting appearances. The pendulum will swing. It will have to, because Gerrard's no mug. He wants footballers on there that are going to affect the game and winning football matches. So I think next season for me will be really interesting. If we're going to go forward with just one of those in that position, I think the one who's in form will get the nod more often than not.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That's how it should be. Do you think Coutinho was dropping a bit too deep at times? Like picking up the ball like almost in line with where a third centre-back would be to try and affect the play, and maybe a little bit of desperation there to think, I've got to be involved, I've got to make things happen. But a player like quite being that deep isn't going to work, is it? Not often anyway. I
think he was dropping deep quite a lot. I mean, we saw that with Grealish, I thought, at times. But that was at the time when Villa were more of a kind of one-man show than they are now. You think they're more of a team. Is that because Villa aren't moving the ball quickly enough through the lines? Nakamba was an interesting one again. Same old criticism of Nakamba, same old praise and same old criticism. Gets his foot in, wins the ball, gets around the pitch, passes it to the opposition. At one stage, he played such a brilliant through ball for Palace. He played a random back pass that nearly put them on the attack. But I think he got back quickly and was the man who fixed his own mess. So I wonder if it was that Coutinho thought, well, the ball's not getting to me quick enough. I'll have to drop deep and try and affect things from deeper areas and carry the ball and move from there. I just thought it was. I think I said to you before we came on air, Dan. I just thought it was a bit kind of after the Lord's Mayor show, really, with all the pomp and ceremony and celebration around the European Cup winners and honouring those, which I thought Villa did a really, really good job on. To be fair, I think after that, the first half fell flat. And then to do it all again, they walked him around the pitch again at half time. And then there was another anticlimax for the second half. But like I said, I thought Villa, I don't know whether you want to talk about that now or at a different stage, but I thought it was a really, really special tribute. And I felt you could see it from the way that the legends reacted, that they really appreciated that love that they were given by the club and by the fan base.
Yeah, let's talk about it now. We might as well kind of get it in while we're talking about it. I've got a little video. Let's play that first. First of all, sorry if that was really loud because that just deafened me. So apologies for that. I'm going to have to come from two perspectives. Obviously, I wasn't there. Adam Wright, a friend of the show, sent me that video, which I put on social media. So thanks, Adam, for that. For the people that were in the stadium, obviously, it's nice to look back on it with the game not being broadcast on Sky or anything. I've only seen it from pictures and from a couple of videos, and it looked brilliant from the photos, and that's what made me have that feeling of, I wish I was one flag waver of that 42,000. That's what I feel like I've missed out on. Watching that video back, I kind of feel like get rid of the music, just let the fans have their moment to sing. It's a bit of both. I don't know whether that's just a weird edit that I may have put the audio from another clip on or anything, but I feel like you don't need the music. Just let the crowd do the business. What was it like in the stadium there?
Yeah, it was fantastic. The thing that struck me was not all of them, but the two or three 60, 70-year-old blokes, legends who were on the pitch as part, and seeing them using their mobile phones to film the crowd. I just found it a weird, I'm not saying 60 and 70-year-old people can't have mobile phones, but I just felt that was really nice that all that they've achieved and everything, they still wanted to record that moment that showed.
That must be some feeling though, walking out there. Like, this isn't even, that must be a good feeling to walk out and be treated like that if you'd won a trophy last year or 5 years ago. The fact that you won this thing, I say this thing like it's nothing, you won this trophy 40 years ago and you're given that reception, that must still, because football was a very different time back then, wasn't it, in terms of the money and the fame and that kind of thing. To get that kind of reception 40 years later, especially for outside of the bigger names, Mortimer, Cowans, Morley, the people we've spoken to, some of the kind of like more fringe players that you don't see very often, that must be a really special thing.
I think so, and I think it's the fact that probably, I wouldn't know the exact demographic of Villa's fan base, but half of those, I'm guessing half the people in the stadium wouldn't have been born, or certainly wouldn't have been old enough to have been there or remembered it. So the fact that the legend lives on, and why wouldn't it? Because we rightly bang on about it and celebrate it at every opportunity. But the fact that has been shared enough by the people who were there, that the rest of us who weren't there feel it and love these guys, just as much as anybody who was at Rotterdam in May the 26th, 1982. It was spine tingling. It was really, really nice. And I think there were, I might be wrong, but I think there were nearly all of them there. I think Tony Morley wasn't there.
Oh, really?
He got a pre-arranged commitment that he couldn't be there, but I believe he's going to be at the dinner that Villa laid on at the end of the month. And I think Jimmy Rimmer wasn't there as well. I'm not sure why Jimmy wasn't there. But other than that, unless somebody corrects me, there were, even the kind of, like, say, fringe players who played earlier in the competition but weren't involved in the final, like, Pat Hurd, Brendan Ormsby, Ivor Linton. And several of those players have not been in great health. So to actually get them there, to give them that moment, I think was really special. And I'll continue to bang on. until otherwise, really, that there should be a more lasting tribute to them, whether it's the naming of the stand, the new North Stand. I've heard talk about that. Whether it's a statue outside the ground, I think there should be both. And obviously, we're talking about remembering Ron Saunders, who built that team as well, and Tony Barton, who put the icing on the cake by leading them to European glory. I think that really still needs to happen. But in terms of a one-off celebration, I think Villa got it spot on yesterday.
Yeah. There's a picture from Christopher Barton. I can flash up on screen for, you're trying to run through the names there of everyone that's there. I can't see Tony Morley. It's the only face that I potentially recognise that isn't there. The Tifo as well. The big European Cup in the whole end looked really good. I think, obviously, again, it wasn't there. But the thing that you sometimes get with these big surfer flags and stuff like that is that there's an element of the stadium that aren't really involved in it because they can't see what's going on, or they're looking outwards onto a display or something. If there's a flag display in the lower north, the people in the lower north don't really get to see it. The fact that the whole stadium is decked out with these claret and white flags, everyone's participating, and if you're in the whole end, you can see through the Tifo on being both sides as well. Really nice, and like Ash said yesterday in his post-match video, I'd like Villa to do that kind of thing more often. Really, it shows it can be done with a bit of preparation, and it's not like you can't celebrate the 82 squad every single game, but surely we can do more things like that. Once more than every 10 years or so. Last time we did something big like that was the Blackburn semi-final, the one I remember, when everyone's got a flag.
Yeah, listen, it's an expense, and it takes logistics, and it takes organisation. But I'm with you. I'm very much of the opinion that there's only going to be, as we've seen, particularly in English football, there's only going to be. So, what competitions can you actually win? First of all, you can win the Premier League, the Champions League, the Europa League, the League Cup, the FA Cup,
Conference
League now as well. But so you're not going to, as we've seen, how many years and counting now? 26 years and counting. You're not going to always win trophies. But to me, you can control the fan element in your ground, really. And why can't Villa follow the German model in terms of making? I'm not saying you do it for every single game, but having these spectacular kind of flag and banner displays, you've got a really invested little group there called Project B6, isn't it? I know it's only run by a couple of lads, but they're really, they do their bit. They try and crowdfund things. They try and come up with fresh designs. They try and honour things and people and events that they know are close to the heart of this football club. So, it's probably as much on the fans as it is on the club to get these things off the ground. Because when Project B6 come up with an idea, if there's a tidal wave of support for it that shows the club that it's worthwhile, perhaps these things would happen more often than not. But you're right; it was a sign that listen, Villa Park looks spectacular if it's full and bouncing, even if not one single person has a flag or a banner. But if you can put those things on, could you designate like 4 matches a season for that kind of thing? And whatever you think, it might be paying tribute to a current player, it might be paying tribute to a former player, a particular match. I just think it looks spectacular. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention as well was I thought it was a nice touch with the Guard of Honour.
I was going to mention that. I was about to say I've got to spin some kind of negative out of it until Steven Gerrard intervenes and changes that up. Do you want to explain that for people that didn't know?
Well, listen, it's obviously what happened was the right thing that happened in the end with the current, not only the current team, but the owners were on the pitch. Christian Purslow was on the pitch. Steven Gerrard was on the pitch to welcome the 82 heroes onto the pitch, give them a Guard of Honour. I thought it was really nice. It was a really nice moment. It transpires, according to Gerrard in his post-match press conference, that somebody suggested doing it the other way. That the European legends stand in, form a couple of lines and clap on the current line. Listen, this is not any criticism of the current lot. I think Villa have got a squad and a group of players who are talented, who are likeable, who are trying to do their best to catapult us back to top half of the Premier League and beyond, but it just doesn't sit right, does it? You know, that they should be applauding our ultimate true legends. So from what I hear, what was said in the press conference, I believe it was Gerrard who said, "Hang on a minute, you know, I think this is the wrong way around. Let us be the ones who giving respect and love to these guys." So, you know, it was the right thing in the end.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because all the owners and Perzo and all those guys being down there as well makes it seem like that was always the original plan, that we would give the 82 guys the guard of honour. But you know, if Gerrard says it was the other way around and he said something, "Oh, I didn't like the thought of that, let's change it." Yeah, I thought of like Sid Cowan standing there applauding on Marvelous Nakamba. Like, oh, God, come on, it's not a massive dig on Nakamba, but kind of is. Let's go back to the game then. I was kind of making notes yesterday. I was working, I was doing social stuff, so I was supposed to be working anyway. So I did half a day at home rather than at the ground. I wrote down Big Ings chance. I got a notification from the Premier League app saying he'd scored on the 34th minute. And I'm watching it a few minutes behind. So I start typing out, "Oh, Ings goal, getting the graphics ready, all this kind of thing, ready to post it." And I say, "Well, Villa haven't said anything, so I'll hold off for a sec." And then my stream catches up a few minutes later, 34th minute comes and Ings puts one past the post. I thought, oh, that's what the notification was supposed to be. Then I thought we'd scored and gone ahead. That was a decent chance. And from the notes I wrote down, was pretty much one of the only real chances we had.
Yeah, I think that was the one where he received the ball off Watkins, sidestepped the defender, and then just whipped it just past the post. It's another one where he's unleashed a volley as well, and that's flown over. Yeah, it was just a bit of a nothing game, really. To be honest,
mid-table clubs.
Yeah, I think so, and I don't quite know why it did fall flat, to be honest, because you'd think that seeing Villa Park in glorious multicolour the way it was, you know, and a really special occasion, you'd think that the current lot would have a spring in the step, but it was one of those where it just fell flat, and I think that there was nobody really. I mean, McGinn actually looked all right, I thought, first half, and played some probing balls. I don't think he was able to maintain it second half, other than his little tussle with Zaha, which we'll come to later. But other than McGinn, Coutinho, a little bit of probing.
Fullbacks do well, I thought.
Yeah, I suppose Luca Dean, I thought, was the pick of the fullbacks yesterday. Obviously got the assist for the goal. Like I say, Matty Cash looked, I don't know, I wouldn't say looked lost, but there were a couple of moments when, you know, a couple of diagonal balls went over his head and he misjudged a couple of things. But, you know, you're still going to get high action, high energy from him. Yeah, it was just one of those where end of season, Villa didn't quite do enough to go and win the game. Didn't force the issue enough and played against the Palace team. Well, I think if we're being honest, we're content to come and take a point.
I suppose because that is a slightly different conversation. If Matty Cash also racks up an assist yesterday, put that good ball across the face of goal. But again, it kind of feels like we're playing two strikers, but no one's ever in the box or in the right place at the right time. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I think you're talking second half, aren't you, where he flashed it across the face of goal, across the 6-yard box. It's an interesting one for me. And this is probably an unfair comparison because I'm probably talking about, you know, one of the best right backs in the world here that I'm comparing him to in Trent Alexander, or certainly one of the best attacking right wing backs in Trent Alexander-Arnold. But if you compare Alexander-Arnold, even on Tuesday at Villa Park, he's probably crossed the ball from a similar place, and he's put it on a plate for Tsimikas, and I think Tsimikas has scuffed his shot or something, or air kicked it. Or was it Tsimikas? Was it somebody else? But whichever Liverpool player it was, I should know this, has actually made a run and helped check the run and given Alexander and been in space for Alexander-Arnold to do a cutback rather than to flash it in a hit and hope way. And I think it's a little bit of that for me. If Villa either aren't getting enough people into the box, or when they are, they're not being clever enough to, you know, it's not the easiest thing finding space, you know, in a penalty area. But I remember when let's bring this back neatly to the legends again. I remember when we spoke to Peter with couple of weeks ago for the podcast about his Villa career, and I think he said people always asked him, what was the art of being a centre forward, and I think he said, I won't do the Scouse accent, but I think he said, being where.
No, go on, do it.
Not doing that. Being where it'll come across a bit like Michael Gove the other week when he started doing his accents. I think he said, being where the centre half ain't. I think he said. Which sounds like a simple philosophy, but I'm not sure. Are the Villa players doing that enough when they're getting into the box? Are they being where the centre half ain't? Finding that bit of space. There
was a clip on Watkins on Twitter that I saw. I don't know whether it was from yesterday or from the Liverpool game or maybe in the week before that. Like I said, I've been all over the place really. But somebody made a run. I think it was Coutinho when he broke through. It was Liverpool. Coutinho broke through and had a bit of work to do, and he could have put it over to Watkins, and then Coutinho kind of just does nothing with it, and Van Dijk dribbles it out of his own area, and nothing comes of it. But Watkins is just kind of floating around. He doesn't really make the near post run. He doesn't make a far post run. Just kind of floats in no man's land, and I kind of feel like you need a bit more from a Premier League striker where we're trying to get 15, 20 goals and firing ourselves into Europe. You've got to be putting your body on the line to break your neck to get into the box, and when you're playing two strikers up front, in the last few weeks, for not either of them to be in the box often enough to be in those opportunities does feel like a waste.
Yeah, I don't think Watkins is a lack of effort or laziness. I think it's a lack of conviction.
No, I think it's conviction, maybe intelligence, or a bit of killer instinct to get yourself in the right positions.
Yeah, I think obviously scored yesterday, so hopefully that'll do him some confidence. And actually got in the box. What Ears was slagging him off for not getting in the box. Got in the box. Probably didn't quite get to where the defender ain't, but got a foot on the ball behind the defender and managed to direct it perfectly into the bottom corner. I think with Watkins, and this debate will rage on. We've spoken in recent weeks, haven't we, about West Ham being in for him and what's his value, and is his value worth more to Aston Villa as a player than it is to any potential fee? I think the thing that Watkins probably needs to do a little bit more, in my humble opinion, as fan in the stand, is when he's competing for the ball aerially or when the ball's coming into him with a defender up against him. I think he goes down too easily, and I don't think he's necessarily looking for a foul. I just think he needs to be better at standing his ground in those situations. Villa couldn't get hold of the ball yesterday. They couldn't make the ball stick for anything longer than 4 or 5 seconds or 2 or 3 passes. And I think it's in those times, probably will hark back to one of Villa's greatest centre forwards again, in terms of Peter With. It's at that time when you've got to do everything you possibly can to make the ball, to get the ball under your control. And I don't think Watkins has quite got that. I think another thing with, sorry, I'm going on a bit of a nostalgia trip here. Another thing with Tolbert was that his job on the pitch was to make himself available for a pass from anybody, whether it's from a big long from the goalkeeper, whether it was, it was looking out, running the channel, so his fullbacks had got an option, whether it was, intelligent running in behind, so his central midfielders had got a through ball. So, in his second or third year in the Premier League to try and rival one of our greatest ever number 9s, but you could probably do worse than, watch the edited highlights, get the VHS, see if you can get a VHS video recorder, get the edited highlights down of Peter With. But yeah, that is quite an expectation to live up to, Ollie, so no pressure, son.
Gerrard said, didn't he, in his pre-match press, I think it was one of the embargoed lines, that Ollie Watkins is going nowhere. Anyway, so the talk that we had last game after Liverpool about potentially West Ham wanting him for 50 million, Gerrard says no, going nowhere.
I think we need to get Gerrard on the presser to talk rather than listen to my crap, don't you? Then you get the definitive.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other things I know we wanted to talk about quickly, so we haven't got loads of time this morning, is Wilfried Zaha. Annoying player, but I kind of feel like if he played for you, you'd kind of like all that kind of, winding up the crowd and that kind of thing. I think it's one of them that Palace fans absolutely love him. I think he's their top goal scorer in the league, probably their top appearance maker, possibly ever. I think I saw yesterday, although I don't know whether that's true. But if that was a Villa player and he was one of our own, I think you'd love him doing all that kind of winding up stuff. But it is a bit annoying.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, so we're allowed to hate him, aren't we? You know, he's not one of our own, and he did properly wind me up. So you know, it's probably job done from his perspective. I'm sure you've got greater intentions than to wind me up, but I was one of the ones he wound up, and I think the thing that annoyed me, and I can see the Palace fans kind of glorifying in this because he is their kind of mischief maker in chief, I suppose. The thing that annoyed me was I don't think the referee was strong enough with him. Now, Palace fans will say, well, they don't think the referee was strong enough with McGinn, and you know, McGinn had a couple of nibbles, and you know, the ref probably should have taken more action. You know, that possibly got a case there, but when the ref is awarding free kicks for fouls on Zaha, and then Zaha is still going back constantly at the ref saying, you know, and then wandering over to the fourth official and doing the same. It was, I don't know, at some stage, the referee's got to say, listen, let me referee this game. One more, you moan once more, and I'll book you for dissent. So I think it was that a little bit. It did amuse me when the whole end struck up a chorus of "He's going to cry in a minute," which I think kind of pretty much nailed it. I did expect Zaha to go and score the winner after that. I thought it was gonna be fate. Would I like that for my team? I don't know. I thought, and again, I'm coming from this from a very Aston Villa Claret and Blue perspective. So if any Palace fans have stumbled upon this, you know, don't kill me in the comments. But I thought it was a little bit too much. But maybe that is because we were on the receiving end of it. Maybe if it was the boot was on the other foot, maybe I would love it because he's clearly pressed our buttons. You know what I mean?
It's a bit anti-football, isn't it? It's the theatrics of it all to try and wind us up a little bit. And he obviously loved the stadium kind of chanting about him. And there's a picture of him holding his hands up like this. And I tweeted it when we scored, saying images that precede unfortunate events. And as soon as I pressed enter, I thought he'll score the winner here, and this tweet will kind of come back to haunt us. But he loves it. Probably thrives on it. Bit in that Grealish mold, likes being fouled, those kind of things. But it is what it is.
Well, it was a talking point, you know.
In a flat game, there's something to talk about. Before there's a question I wanted to put on you for a little social clip that I've not prepped you for, so you might stumble and will come nothing will come of it. But you wanted to give a shout out to somebody as well, so do you want to get that out of the way first? Get it out of the way. It's a horrible way to put it, but yeah, go on.
I don't want to get it out of the way. I want to make a big thing of it. No, just two avid listeners stopped me outside Villa Park. I was just walking up. Where was I walking? I was walking around the corner from Nelson Road, I think it is, which is one of the roads off Trinity Road. And I was eating a bag of quavers, and they wondered. And I got my sunglasses on, so I thought I was incognito. But you know, my fame precedes me. It was Aaron and Julie, a couple of Villa fans, who say they're regular listeners. They agree with most things I say, which I think they were just being nice. And they even stay around for the nonsense bits at the end, so they could still.
They'll even be watching this bit then,
yeah. So that was very kind, and Julie recognised that quavers are one of the healthier crisp snacks that I can have. So I was sticking in on my slimming world. So big shout out to them, lovely couple of Villa fans. So it was. I did thank them at the time for their kind words. One thing on that, Aaron. I don't like the name Aaron. Have we done this before? I think it's a waste of a letter A. I don't see why.
We have done this before because
I'm a Matthew with one T, so I've sacrificed the letter just so Aaron can have an extra A. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, he's a lovely fella, but I think he needs to hand back in one of his A's.
Okay. Were the quavers the cheesy ones, or are they the salt and vinegar or the prawn cocktail?
Oh, they certainly weren't prawn cocktail. I'm not
prawn cocktail's grim, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, then it skips prawn cocktail. Aren't skips prawn cocktail quavers in effect anyway?
Yeah, kind of. I don't mind skips, but I don't like prawn cocktail. So that's a little conundrum for you.
Yeah, they were cheesy quavers, mate. The originals.
Okay, good. All right, that's good.
Is that the question you wanted to ask?
No, it wasn't. The question I wanted to ask was for a little social bit that I'm doing. And it's, the one we did about how many goals could you score and all that. And I've got all our, podcasts co-hosts or whatever you want to call us to contribute. this week's one or next week's one is which player did you love for like no reason? So not like a Grealish or a good player, like somebody who was probably a little bit like Alan Hutton is a good example, bit of a nothing player, but a cult hero. So I'm going to hand over to you with absolutely no prep whatsoever. If you can think of a name and a reason, that would be lovely.
You've thrown me a little bit about this, and this is just the worst example ever. And this is the most Matt Kendrick. I don't like speaking about myself in the third person, but it's the most Kendrick example you can ever imagine. Speaking about, we were talking about VHS videos a while ago, and me and my mate Gaz, shout out to my mate Gaz Crump, who we used to go to the BC ticket holders together for many years. We used to get the end of season videos, or if Villa produced any VHS video about Villa, we used to get. And there was a player called Carl Tyler, who was a big centre half, who didn't figure that much. I'm just trying to think what era he'd have played. Villa had great centre halves, you know, certainly through the era of the late 90s, early 90s. So he'd have been a backup player at best. But there's a video about what Villa's pre-match routines were. And, you know, there'd be the usual, you know, some players would put the left boot on first out of superstition, and some players would make sure they had the same meal, you know, chicken and beans or whatever it was, or egg and chips before the match. But Carl Tyler, it always stuck with me. He came on to this video and he made the cut, and he used to say, you know, I always, without fail, make sure I have a number 2 before the game. And it just made me, because I'm a juvenile idiot, it just made me laugh that of everything that he had to do, whether it was superstition or whether it was comfort, he had to go for a poo before the game. And he just become this weird cult hero with me and my mate. And I might be exaggerating or taking the story in a different direction, but I'm sure we even from then on, you know, we're close mates and we go on holiday together and stuff like that. If ever anybody used to go for a dump, we used to call it a Carl Tyler. And it just, like I say, it's random. I've loved lots of Villa players for lots of different reasons. But in terms of a really, really random, bizarre cult hero, then I think Carl Tyler going for a number 2.
I love that yours isn't even like related to football in any way. Like it's like he was a terrible player, but he scored a banger of a goal, or, you know, did something or other. Like, I don't know where I'm going with that.
Have I shared the Dwight York story from the same video, for one of those videos back in the day?
Is this the same video where Ian Taylor says that he drinks Ribena and that's what his favourite drink is?
It might be the Squaddies video when they're on the front cover dressed up as soldiers and stuff. It might be that one, but they used to bring out loads of bits and pieces like this. But there's the Dwight York one, and they showed him kind of preparing a meal or something, or in his kitchen at his home. And I think somebody asked him, what does he most, you know, living in Birmingham now, what does he most what does he most miss about living in the Caribbean? And this is a really bad accent, but he said, I miss my mum's cooking. And he meant cooking, and it sounded like cocaine. And it was like, so I remember, like, when we weren't doing terrible jokes about Carl Tyler doing a number 2, we just used to call it, I miss my mum's cooking. So there you have it. There's an insight into my world. But he definitely meant cooking.
Yes, of course. I'm glad I brought that up. That's a nice way to end the podcast on a funny note. Being the outstanding video producer that I am, I've also queued up the Peter With trailer. Seeing as we've mentioned it so many times, we might as well go and push people in that direction as well. Matt, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast, as always. There's only a couple more left now, isn't there? I don't know what we're doing Thursday night or Friday morning for Burnley, and then it's the last game of the season on Sunday. So only a couple more post-match shows to go. Thanks to the fans for tuning in, as always. We'll be doing another one of these, like I said, later in the week. I got all the way through without coughing.
You know you're ill, Dan. I'll lay it on thick. You know you're ill.
So I'm going to queue up the Peter With trailer, so you can go and watch that. I'll stick the link in the comments box below as well. It is a good watch. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Matt, you can leave, by the way, if you want, because I know you've got another meeting to go to.
I want to watch it.
Okay. All right, then. Let's play it. Here we go.
I'm just missing one piece of the jigsaw, he said, and that's you. He said, if I get a centre forward of your calibre, he said, we'll win the league. You're a nice guy, and you're pleasant, and you're this and you're that. He said, but I look at you in the football field. He said, it's just a different animal, a different beast. And I said, yeah, it is. I said, because it's called crossing the white line. So he said, what do you mean? I said, when I cross that white line to get on that football field, don't stand in my way. What have you got? to tell me about centre halves. And I said, it's very simple. Whatever the centre half is, I ain't. That's how you score goals. And of course, that's when Ron made the famous, to Tony Gubbin, made the famous statement, do you want to bet against us?
How did you respond to that statement from him?
I know, I responded to it. I responded to saying, that's what I would have said. Whatever you do, don't bet against us, because we'll come bouncing straight back and we'll bite you. Once he's got free, I knew, and I'm looking at Argenthaler, and Argenthaler, as I've gone forward, has gone to the near post. I know where the goalkeeper's got to cover. He's got to cover to the near post. So once the ball is past Argenthaler and it's past the centre half, I'm now in the middle of the goal. 1,000 things are going through my head, but the most important thing that's going through my head, all the practice you've done of these opportunities, make good contact with the ball.